I found an interesting article from the Hockey Writers I'll talk about in this video concerning the Calgary Flames and some potential rumors. Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And I was actually surprised, it was just yesterday, that when the Seattle Kraken announced that they were going to name their new head coach, there was rumors for the longest time that it was going to be Rick Tocchet, who was going to be the head coach, the first head coach in Seattle Kraken history, to only find out that ultimately the Seattle Kraken decided to go with Dave Hakstol, the former college coach who was most recently assistant coach with the Toronto Maple Leafs and most notably being the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. But Seattle ultimately decided to go with Dave Hakstol to be the head coach, despite the rumors that many insiders were saying that the Rick Tocchet was the frontrunner for that head coach position. Most recently, Rick Tocchet was the head coach of the Arizona Coyotes. He also spent some time as a head coach with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he was also part of the Colorado Avalanche, and he was the associate coach for the Pittsburgh Penguins, especially when they won their back-to-back Stanley Cups before he took the head coaching job with the Arizona Coyotes, and then most notably being a power forward in the NHL, especially with the Philadelphia Flyers, for I mentioned. But the reason that kind of ties in with the Calgary Flames, that I got out this article that I get email updates from the Hockey Writers, and this article came out a few days prior to when the Seattle Kraken ultimately named their head coach, who ultimately was Dave Hakstol. But this is from the Hockey Writers. It came out on June 21st, 2021, by Colton Penka, if I said the name right, that talks about rumors, and we'll touch on some other news involving some Calgary Flames news. But it talked about that pinch that the Calgary Flames, although recently they named Kirk Muller as an associate coach and promoted Cail MacLean from the Stockton Heat to be on the bench. But it talked about that apparently Rick Tocchet would join Daryl Sutter as an assistant coach. It'd be interesting to know how this will work if it happens, now that the fact that Rick Tocchet did not get the head coaching position with the Seattle Kraken, it touches upon that this would have been his backup plan. But you almost have to wonder already with the Calgary Flames, you think they filled out their coach staff? I mean, maybe it would definitely be a big addition and experience to the coaching staff with Daryl Sutter and now Kirk Muller. That it talks about that Rick Tocchet. It talked about that SiriusXM NHL Network radio host Jonathan Davies that the Flames may land Tocchet as an assistant coach for this upcoming season, 21-22, if he did not take the Seattle Kraken job, as he was rumored to be the front runner, and now that it's come out that it's Dave Hakstol. It talks about Rick Tocchet may potentially join the coaching staff with Daryl Sutter's assistant, and it may definitely be a massive hire. We already got Kirk Muller, and then Cail MacLean. But I just find this interesting that it came out a few days prior, and now that I'm making this video because of the direction that the Seattle Kraken came in. It would be a great hire if we add him to the staff. I mean, what does that mean about who gets to be the eye in the sky? I know when Martin Jonas was part of the coaching staff, he's now going back to the player development. If you see that video talking about the Calgary Flames adding Kirk Muller as an associate coach, and I think the associate coach is just a step below a head coach position. That is Daryl Sutter. I mean, you got to think that maybe Cail MacLean, if this happens, would be the eye in the sky, and you have Kirk Muller and Rick Tocchet behind the bench with Daryl Sutter. I mean, could this be potentially a situation where that we would groom one of those coaches to be a head coach if they're going to stay in the organization? I mean, it would definitely add a lot more experience. I mean, Rick Tocchet's definitely known as a defensive specialist. I mean, there's word that apparently Kirk Muller was going to work with the forwards in the power play, and then the fact that Kirk Muller and Rick Tocchet have had long playing careers and had some time as head coach. But I just find this just interesting that I don't think necessarily this would be the only opportunity for him to be coaching in the NHL. Not as a head coach, because as it is recording, the only other team now that is vacant in their head coach position is the Arizona Coyotes, which the Arizona Coyotes agreed to move on for Rick Tocchet. But this article just touches on that if Rick Tocchet did not get the Seattle Kraken job, I mean, who knows, could he potentially, would it be awkward if he decided to take the associate coach with the Seattle Kraken? But it would definitely be a great staff if we get him, but I just saw this and I'm thinking, we kind of already filled out our staff for this season. I mean, could this be a grooming situation? Because, I mean, Daryl Sutter's getting up there, and technically he was, retired and was just an advisor to the Anaheim Ducks with the coaching before he decided to leave the farm and come back behind the bench, and we'll see how this plays out. But what do you think about potentially Rick Tocchet coming to the Calgary Flames as an assistant coach if it happens to add on with Kirk Muller? But I just think there might be other opportunities around the league before you consider Calgary. But it's just interesting to saw this. And then speaking of Anaheim Ducks, well, Geoff Ward, remember Geoff Ward, the former, who was an associate coach and then became the head coach before we let him go for Daryl Sutter. Geoff Ward, and I expected he was going to land somewhere in the NHL. Geoff Ward is going to be coaching in the NHL next season, as he is going to the Anaheim Ducks to join their staff. So Geoff Ward will be behind an NHL bench, not as head coach, but he is going to be joining the Anaheim Ducks. So good for Geoff Ward. I still think Geoff Ward, I like him as a coach and the pedigree it has. I wouldn't be surprised if he eventually becomes a head coach again somewhere in the NHL. So Geoff Ward is now going to be joining the Anaheim Ducks. And then other news I'll touch upon, that one player that will not be returning for the Calgary Flames, all in this Hockey Writers article, is that Nikita Nesterov. He is going back home to the KHL, which I'm going to say, not to slag him too much, it's not going to be that much of a loss. I think he kind of struggled coming back to the North American game after he played in the KHL for the last 3 seasons. I mean, it wasn't a huge cap hit, but I just felt that towards the end of the season, especially with the coaching change from Geoff Ward to Daryl Sutter, that he kind of fell out of favor, that Michael Stone took more of the playing time. So Nikita Nesterov is going back to the CSKA Moscow, where he played previously in the KHL before he came here for the Calgary Flames this past season. So Nikita Nesterov, and then it mentions that Jakob Pelletier in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League won the MVP for the Val d'Or. So congratulations to Jakob Pelletier, the player that we drafted in the first round back in 2019, 26th overall. So we are going to have some potential news with Rick Tocchet. Is he going to be joining Daryl Sutter and Kirk Muller behind the bench? This story kind of makes it sound like that if Rick Tocchet did not get the Seattle Kraken head coach job, that he's going to come here to Calgary. What do you think of that if it happens? And then I guess the other news about Geoff Ward joining the Anaheim Ducks staff, Nikita Nesterov going back to Russia, back home, and then Jakob Pelletier winning the MVP in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. So that's just some quick Calgary Flames hits to talk about. This main story was about the Rick Tocchet and this rumor that if he did not join Seattle as the head coach and Seattle decided to go with Dave Haxtell, that it sounds like Rick Tocchet may come join the coaching staff here in Calgary, but that remains to be seen. It's the Hockey Writers. I get some, interesting emails from them, but I'm going to say it till you see it, potentially on Hockey Buzz, and then as well as coming out of the mouth of Sportsnet with Elliot Freeman, or TSM with like Darren Dreger or Pierre LeBrun. That sometimes you just take it with a grain of salt, but just something interesting to make a video on. So I say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home the Flames, Hip, and the Roughnecks Stampeders, I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, but I also do grind out sports content like personal vlogs, attempt to calm me, and also do share my experience I'm on the road or a sport event, and I've been doing some more vlogging to go. So if that all sounds like of interest to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, you know what you do, just make sure you hit like and subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below, and also will put the story from the Hockey Writers in the description below, touching on what I talked about in this video, that could Rick Tocchet would definitely be an asset if we added him to the coaching staff and get more depth in the coaching staff. But I'm just kind of thinking, after when we made the decisions last week about Kirk Muller and moving up Cail MacLean from the Stockton Heat, that I was thinking that's going to be the staff for the rest of the year. But sometimes it's kind of like football, where you're considered someone to be a head coach, but it's like, well, you can also have him on as a coordinator as well. But I mean, that's all I have to say about it. It just seems interesting enough to make a video on. So I'm going to say go Flames go, as we are heading into well, everything's still shifted because of obvious reasons, but eventually we'll have the off season where we'll have the Seattle Kraken expense draft, the entry draft, and then free agent frenzy before we get into next season. So eventually I'll make videos on that when the time comes. So I'm going to say go Flames go, and I'll see you in the next video. And yes, let's just say go Habs go too. They have actually punched their ticket to the Stanley Cup Finals, and we're waiting to see if they're either going to play the New York Islanders or the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the New York Islanders, they've been having that reputation in the playoffs this season, and Tampa Bay, there's no way I could cheer for Tampa Bay for June 2004 reasons. So let's go Habs. Let's see if the Habs can win the Stanley Cup. They're in the finals at this recording. So I say thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.